My name is Harper, and I arrived in Maine the week the fog learned my name. The inn sat above a rocky cove, windows blinking with salt, gulls sketching white slashes over the slate-green water. At night, the lighthouse swept a halo across the surf, a heartbeat of light, and the horn moaned. I came to finish a grant report. Instead, I kept finishing cups of tea and glancing at the ocean. I first saw her by the railing where the cliff path begins. She stood in the wind, silver blonde hair tucked into a knit cap, one hand on a thermos, the other on the paint-chipped rail. Lines feathered her eyes, the kind that come from squinting at horizons more than screens. "You picked the right week for fog," she said without turning. "It makes ordinary things tell the truth." I almost laughed, but the wave below struck rock, and the sound felt like punctuation. "I'm Harper," I said. "I write, or try to." She turned then, and the lighthouse's long blink lifted across her face. "Evelyn," she said. "I keep the light." We walked the path at the lazy pace of neighbors who don't know each other yet. Wet lupine brushed our calves. Every so often the horn sounded, and I felt it in my ribs. Evelyn spoke like someone who learned to hear weather. Short sentences, gentle pauses, no rush to be believed. She showed me the tide chart in her pocket, the way she could tell a squall by the taste of the air. I offered facts about my city apartment and the humming refrigerator inside it. At the top of the lighthouse stairs, we stopped. From there, the world was stitched in gray. Ocean, sky, fog, the faint seam of shore. "It's not gloomy," Evelyn said softly. "It's intimate. The light reaches farther when it has something to lean on." She unlocked a small door and let me see the lantern, glass panes clean as bone, the lens rippling like a frozen wave. I watched her hands as she checked the mechanism. Steady, practical hands, a small scar near the thumb. The quiet between us gathered like wool. When she looked up, our eyes met through the lens, and her face fractured into tender, ghostly versions of itself. I swallowed, aware of my breath. We climbed down, palms skimming the rail. Outside, the fog thinned to gauze. Evelyn poured tea from her thermos and held the cup toward me, her glove brushing my wrist. Warmth followed the touch as surely as steam. "To people who remember to look," she said. "To people who teach them," I answered. The horn sounded, and for a moment it felt like approval. The days arranged themselves around the lighthouse as shells ring a tide pool. My report gathered dust while Evelyn and I fell into rituals. Morning tea, noon walks to the cove where water hissed, lantern checks at dusk. She was 58, a widow who kept the light because it kept her. I was 27, moving fast to avoid depth. One night the fog lifted and the sky arrived in a black bowl of stars. We carried our cups to the catwalk and listened to the harbor clink and settle. The beam rolled out, swept the dark, returned. Evelyn leaned on the frame, and I, brave with chill, asked about love, how it changes, whether it can begin late and still feel early. She thought. "Love is mostly in the attention," she said. "The rest is season." She turned her thermos cap. "Sometimes you meet someone who makes the air line up." The words landed in me like a bell. A strand crossed her cheek. I reached to tuck it back and stopped. She didn't move away. The beam passed over us, and its warmth felt like permission or a test. I let the hair fall, my hand retreating, the space between us alive. After that, we spoke more softly and touched less. The restraint was a braid we both held. She taught me the names of currents, and I taught her my favorite lines. We cooked in the keeper's kitchen, steam fogging the glass while loons called. When she laughed, she covered her mouth, and I wanted to peel her hand away and keep the sound. On my last evening, a storm arrived. First rumor, then undeniable. Rain ticked on the panes, then rode in slants. We climbed to the lantern. The room hummed. Light whirled and the sea answered. I stood close so we could hear each other. "My name is Harper," I said, though she knew. "I will miss you in a way that feels like weather." Evelyn's eyes shone. "My name is Evelyn," she said, "and I will miss you like the shoreline misses low tide, with relief and ache." I laughed, and in that laugh our caution loosened. I took her hand. It was warm, sure. No kiss followed. We stood there, pulse by pulse, while the storm leaned against the tower and the horn called out. At dawn, the road smelled of pine and rain. The beam faded to day work. I drove until the lighthouse was a small white memory on gray. I finished my report, every sentence threaded with steadiness. Some nights I wake to sirens and hear a horn that is not there. I make tea and think of a woman who keeps a light, and how attention can be a kind of home. I am not lonely. I am pointed,